Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to cover the Jean-Claude Van Damme classic Lionheart. If you like this kind of topic, this kind of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. I'll keep bringing in this kind of content. Oh, make sure to stay to the end because I'm going to share a very personal reason why I absolutely love this movie. Many of us know the film as Lionheart, but it was actually released under 5 different titles depending on the country it was released in. It was released under the names Lionheart, Full Contact, AWOL, short for Absent Without Leave, Wrong Bet, and Leon. The film was independently funded and therefore sold to various distributors throughout the world, and they just picked the title that they felt would have the most impact in their respective territories. Which title do you guys prefer, by the way? Comment below. The independent company that produced the film was Imperial Entertainment, and Lionheart was part of a 2-picture deal Van Damme made with them, the first being Black Eagle. There was already a film called Lionheart in the United States, by the way, that came out in 1987. It was an adventure film that took place after the 12th century, and it was put out by Warner Brothers. But Warner Brothers allowed Universal Pictures, who happened to be the US distributor for Van Damme's Lionheart, to use that title in the US. As far as the story goes, our hero,
Gautier, that's me,
deserts the French Foreign Legion in order to see his dying brother, who's on his deathbed because of a drug deal gone bad. Unfortunately, Leon doesn't quite make it in time, and if that weren't bad enough, his sister-in-law ends up laying the guilt and blame solely on him.
Streets that you left him on are what killed him.
Leon's brother not only leaves behind a wife, but also a daughter as well as a pile of unpaid medical bills. Being the kind-hearted and selfless man Leon is, he partakes in a series of underground illegal fights in order to make enough money to help his brother's family, the only family he has left.
Let me try to help you.
He sets up a plan with his manager.
My manager?
In order to get money to his sister-in-law without her knowing he's a source of the funds. Although the film had a rather small budget, roughly $6 million, you would never know.
You would never know.
Even Bolo agrees. The film seemed big, it seemed epic. That's because it took place in so many different locales. Djibouti, East Africa, although the film says North Africa, New York, and then finally Los Angeles. To keep the budget down, the film was primarily shot in California, including all of the New York scenes. The desert scenes where Van Damme escapes from the Foreign Legion, those were shot in nearby Nevada. Speaking of keeping the budget down, that's one of the reasons why you'll see one of the writing credits as S.N. Warren. Van Damme came up with the initial story for Lionheart, and the script was primarily written by Van Damme and Sheldon Lettich, who also directed, but because Sheldon Lettich was part of the Writers Guild, they initially didn't want to use him and instead had someone who was not part of the Writers Guild, basically someone the producers didn't have to pay that much, which happened to be Stephanie Warren. But there was a stipulation that the script still had to get Van Damme's final approval. Long story short, neither the star, Van Damme, or director, Sheldon Lettich, were happy with her draft, so they did end up doing heavy revisions. Speaking of Sheldon Lettich, this was actually the first feature film he directed, and a lot of credit has to be given to Van Damme, who developed a friendship with Lettich after shooting Bloodsport, a film Sheldon Lettich wrote based on a true story that took place in Frank Dukes' imagination.
Just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Early on, Sheldon Lettich believed Van Damme could be a much bigger star, not just the karate guy. Van Damme thought it'd be a good idea to work with Sheldon Lettich after seeing and being impressed by a short film Sheldon had directed in the early 1980s called Firefight. That film, by the way, has a cast with quite a few names you've most likely heard of. Martial arts fraudster Frank Dukes, Taekwondo masters Philip and Simon Rhee from the Best of the Best film series, and also Brian Thompson, who happens to be in Lionheart. Van Damme knew Sheldon believed in him and persuaded producer Sunil Shah to let Sheldon direct Lionheart. Lionheart would end up being a film that expanded Van Damme's range as an actor. The story could have easily been one of revenge, with Van Damme on the hunt for the men who killed his brother. The script doesn't even mention the fate of those men. However, in the US release of the film, Universal wanted the movie to make mention that they were caught, probably so as not to have the audience wonder why Van Damme never went after them. Take the illegal underground fighting out of Lionheart, and the film really just sounds like a drama about a guy trying to help out his deceased brother's family. In fact, it wasn't the action or the fighting that even got Universal Pictures interested in distributing the film within the United States. Jean-Claude Van Damme was a rising star at the time, and Universal wanted to be in business with him, but the scene that really won execs over was the one in the stairwell between Van Damme's character and his niece. I believe it was these softer, more human moments that likely won the audience over as well. I mean, name me one other movie dealing with underground fights, or fights in general, where we see our hero, our fighter, at the park feeding ducks. I mean, the dichotomy is actually pretty funny, but it's what I really love about this movie. You may revisit a lot of other movies similar to Lionheart just to watch the fights, and the fights in Lionheart are definitely worth revisiting, but I'd argue the entire Lionheart movie is worth revisiting. There's a pretty cool interview with Sheldon Lettich from BirthMoviesDeath, which I'll link in the description below, where the interviewer said, "I've met a lot of people who consider Lionheart one of Van Damme's most defining films. What do you think that might be? What is it about Lionheart that inspires such fan devotion?" Sheldon Lettich answered, "People love the characters. They're particularly fond of Leon's motor-mouthed self-appointed manager, Joshua. Van Damme's female fans seem especially enamored of this film because it was the first and possibly the best to showcase JCVD's softer, more compassionate side. In Lionheart, he's not fighting for revenge or to honor his sensei or any of the usual motivations that are typical for these sorts of movies. He's fighting for his family. He's getting himself bruised and bloodied in these brutal street fights so that his little niece can get a new bicycle." That was a pretty nice bike, by the way. As far as the fights in Lionheart and the actors who played them, I'll be doing an entirely different video focusing exclusively on that. There'll be some pretty cool stuff in that video that I think you guys would really enjoy. The fight choreography itself was done by Van Damme, Frank Dukes, and Michelle Kesey, who is Van Damme's childhood friend and the guy who played Tong Po in Kickboxer. It's classic Van Damme fighting, the heavy use of slow motion, and one of my favorites, the use of multiple cuts to really showcase a move and give it that extra impact. Oh, since we're at the pool party, here's something that really stuck out to me watching the high-definition Blu-ray copy of Lionheart. Something you may not necessarily have noticed or seen on cable television, the VHS copy, or even DVD. Something you will soon be unable to unsee, but it really kind of showcases a level of detail you can expect from a high-definition version of Lionheart. In general, a Speedo is not exactly a good look for a guy. Maybe you could get away with that in Europe, but not so much in America. But if you want to at least try to pull it off, you should probably shave your legs like all the other people at the pool party. This guy's look really says it all. He's got to be thinking, "Gee, I really hope they don't release this in high definition someday." Well, no such luck for him or us. Speaking of the release, I just got this Blu-ray copy of the MVD Rewind Collection. It's pretty cool. It's got a ton of bonus features, audio commentary, behind-the-scenes interviews, some with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Not only that, there's a really cool poster too that I'll have to frame this and put it in the background there. I actually had the Lionheart VHS tape growing up and eventually got the DVD, which is presented in a 1:3:3 full-frame format. I just thought I had a lame copy all these years, but Sheldon Lettich mentioned in the audio commentary that the 1:3:3 full-frame version was all we had in the US for decades. So if you guys haven't seen this movie in a while, I recommend you get this Blu-ray version so you can see the film in its proper 1:8:5 ratio. As I mentioned earlier, Lionheart is an independent production from Imperial Entertainment. Universal Pictures picked up the US distribution rights and had a lot of faith in Van Damme at the time, which is good because it gave them the confidence to spend money promoting the film. It worked out great for both the studio as well as Van Damme's career, and the film ended up grossing 30% more than any other Van Damme film at the time. The promotional material used to sell the film to rental video stores did a good job at extolling the benefits of having Lionheart available for rent. For example, it mentioned that Lionheart was one of the top 10 films released in the first quarter of 1991, which I'll say the audience definitely had great taste back then. It also mentioned that there would be extensive network, cable, and spot television advertising to keep rentals high. My favorite part of the advert was mention of the instant floor display, which would have stood 65 inches high and 26 inches wide. How cool is that? Wouldn't you love to have one of those in your entertainment room? As far as co-stars go, Harrison Page played Van Damme's good friend and manager, Joshua. Harrison is good friends with Sheldon Lettich and actually lives like 2 blocks away from him in real life. The two men provide the audio commentary on the MVD Rewind Collection Blu-ray disc, by the way. Harrison recollected that people really love Lionheart, and he talked about a 35-year-old man that came up to him in the gym and told him that Lionheart was his favorite movie. That guy could have totally been one of us on this channel. Harrison actually worked at this hospital in the movie in real life as a nurse before his film career took off. He's been pretty much working consistently since the late 60s and early 70s up until now. The little girl that played Van Damme's niece, Nicole, was played by Ashley Johnson. Lionheart was her first movie and she's pretty much been acting ever since, most recently in the television series Blind Spot. Michelle Kesey, Van Damme's childhood friend who played Tong Po in Kickboxer that I mentioned earlier, had a pretty good supporting role in Lionheart. He played Mustafa, one of the 2 Legionnaires sent to America to retrieve Van Damme, and his brother, Abdel Kesey, played Attila, the main guy Van Damme had a fight at the end. He'd also end up playing the main villain in another Van Damme film, 1996's The Quest, where he played Khan, the Mongolian fighter. Here's another guy you may recognize, by the way.
How about too late, man? Boogie, what's up, man? He talked to me, man. You gonna make a bet or what?
He would later show up in Double Impact, mistaking Chad for Alex. He seems to just always be involved with betting for some reason.
What's wrong with him? I don't know.
Oh, here's a fun fact, by the way. This Weasley guy here that Van Damme called out actually ended up becoming a big-time Hollywood producer in real life. The type that could probably actually get a girl like that. Lawrence Bender, the grudge fight heckler, would go on to produce Quentin Tarantino's big hits such as Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill, and also a film I covered on this channel, Knockaround Guys with Vin Diesel. Make sure to check out that video if you haven't, I'll link it in the description below. Going back to that calling heckler out scene, it wasn't even rehearsed. Van Damme just went for it, nobody ended up breaking character. That's some real tension there.
Right now, you and me.
Another scene that wasn't rehearsed that ended up playing brilliantly took place near the end of the film when Joshua found out Leon had that broken rib. Sheldon Lettich felt if they just shot the scene, it'd work better, be more real and authentic, and he was certainly right.
Nothing, huh? Nothing? Hey. You know what's circulating out there, man? Huh?
Right before Leon's big fight with Attila, he tells Joshua that he took everything out of the bank and put a bet on himself. Then during the fight, Joshua tells Leon that all the money is on Attila. It's assumed that they each made separate bets, Leon on himself with his money and Joshua on Attila with his own money. Though I've always wondered if Joshua just told him that because he truly cared about Leon, way more than the money, and just didn't want to see his friend continue to get hurt or worse. Either way, it's led to this classic line.
Wrong bet.
But going back to Joshua and Leon, this movie really just had a great, strong bromance, which happened to be misinterpreted by Cynthia.
You planning on sleeping in the hallway?
No, I'll stay next door with Joshua.
Got something going?
There's more than a few of these funny moments in the film. Some of the more memorable ones deal with phones.
No, it's my sister-in-law. She's waiting for me, Elan Gaultier.
Honey, I don't care if she's the mayor's sister-in-law. If I don't need a coin, it's the end of the conversation. You got it?
And then when Joshua has this guy's neck wrapped around the telephone
Hey, man,
cord.
you want to use the phone?
Come on, let's go.
Laughter aside, Lionheart certainly packed plenty of punch overall. Sheldon Lettich said he'd go to the theater when it was playing to gauge the audience's reaction. He said they would cheer the end fight and sometimes clap along with the audience in the film, and cry at the end of the movie when Leon was taken away. Lionheart certainly has a way of creating that emotional wallop you wouldn't ordinarily get. You could give a fair amount of credit to the sweeping score, it really helped set the mood, and although the budget was pretty small overall, that's definitely not something they ended up skimping on. In fact, it was a real full orchestra, not anything synthesized. Sheldon Lettich said, Lionheart was a defining film for Van Damme because I did not shy away from giving him considerable amounts of dialogue and character development throughout the film. I trusted him to pull this off, whereas before nobody else believed he could do much more than just deliver some fancy kicks and simple one-liners. Lionheart was the first movie to demonstrate that Van Damme was more than just a flash-in-the-pan karate guy who would never rise above simplistic, low-budget karate movies. Entertainment Weekly said Lionheart essentially is a remake of the 1975 Charles Bronson vehicle Hard Times. Lionheart is nicely shot and edited, and it comes about as close to being a real movie as you can get in this genre. For me, Lionheart is very meaningful, it's very personal, it left a lasting impression on my life. I came across it during my formative years. I'm sure you got movies in your life that left a lasting impact. Lionheart's one for me. So I first seen the movie when I was 14 years old. At the time I was a skinny kid with glasses, went to a new school, this was in Washington State, and I felt threatened. I wasn't bullied per se, but I didn't feel safe. This kind of coincided with when I started taking Taekwondo. So I was starting to build a little bit of confidence and a little bit of skill, but I wouldn't have been ready to face any kind of challenge. But the movies like Lionheart and Bloodsport and Kickboxer really motivated me to train. Lionheart in particular, I remember when I used to walk to the bus stop on the way to school every day, and I would watch that scene near the end of the film when Van Damme's walking out to face Attila, and they're playing that really cool song, No Mercy or Backs to the Wall. That's essentially what I felt like. I felt like my back was to the wall, and on any given day I could potentially run into my own Attila. And I would have been going into that fight with a metaphorically broken rib. I just wasn't ready yet. So anyway, that's why I fondly remember Lionheart. I always loved this movie. Reminds me of my childhood. Started me in my journey of training, which I still love to do to this day. But this new copy, Viking Samurai and this MVD Blu-ray, this is going to be like the bromance of 2020, especially since you can't really go out and do anything right now. So